Okay, well, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
My name's Mike Whitler. I'm the general manager here at Kerrville Public Utility Board. I want to welcome you all today. This is our first open house or presentation on this potential generation project that we've been evaluating, been looking at, and so I'll just go ahead and jump into this. We always start off talking about our history and our ownership. The story of electricity here in Kerrville started in the late 1800s on the banks of the Guadalupe River downtown. The Schreiner family in 1892 installed the first generating plant in Kerrville. And for about 30 years, that generation plant and the distribution system was passed around, owned by local families, Shriners, Imsels, Mowers, Eastlands. They're familiar names if you've been here very long. But eventually in 1925, the electric system in Kerrville the ownership was transferred to the Texas Power and Light Company. They were at the time headquartered in Dallas, and so from 1925 for 62 years, the electric system was controlled by entities outside of Kerr County. In 1987, the citizens of Kerrville voted to form the Kerrville Public Utility Board, issued $29.5 million in debt, and they purchased the system from LCRA in 1987. And so in 1987, 37 years ago, control of our electric system came back home. And so we're a public power utility, and we are not-for-profit. The rates we charge are used to basically offer services or provide our service to our customers. We have competitive low rates. We provide reliable service. We are focused on our customers and being responsive to our customers' needs. We are locally controlled. Our board of directors is up here on the slide. They're local businessmen and women from our community, and then also the mayor serves on our board. We live here, we work here, and we invest in our community. KPUB's mission is to be a responsive and efficient, locally owned provider of safe and reliable utility service at the lowest responsible price. And those last three words are what is driving us to look at this project today, lowest responsible price. We have a history of providing very good rates. Currently, our rates for residential customers are 10 cents a kilowatt hour. We're about 37% lower than the U.S. average and 29% lower than the Texas average. And when you look at how we compare regionally, we're typically in the top three. These are municipally owned and cooperative utilities in the Central Texas region. So those are prices in our region, with the average being about 12.5 cents, and our rates are 10 cents right now. On the power supply side, we purchase power for our customers from diverse competitive sources, and we do that to ensure our lowest rates. So low rates has always been our priority when we make our decisions on power supply. We have a fairly big power supply contract that's ending in the next few years, and so we have to make a decision as to whether, how we replace that contract in our power supply portfolio. And so right now we're taking first steps in a lengthy process of evaluating owning generation as an option. This is a picture of our power supply portfolio. And what we've built, these are listed as the contracts in time. The first contract, or the one on top there, is with CPS Energy. They supply our load following energy. And load following, what that does is it provides all energy needed above a certain base amount. And it covers all the peaks. So right now, CPS covers us for basically anything we need. If we have a hot summer day, they're supplying all the extra we need, at 5 in the afternoon in August. And when we have a cold snap, which is actually more load for us, they supply all of that. In addition to that, we've got a number of other contracts, and we've gone for diversity, both in terms of supplier, geographic region, and fuel source. So we don't want a lot of eggs in one basket. So we've built this portfolio to spread out risk and reduce cost. So going down the list, there's a 15 megawatt block of wind, and then the next one is a 20 megawatt base load block. So that's 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. The company providing that is NextEra Energy. They're a very large investor-owned utility. Then we have a solar, 25 megawatts of solar, 20 megawatts of wind, another 25 megawatt solar deal. And then today we have to decide how we're replacing the CPS Energy agreement on top. And we're really down to two choices. We can either replace it with a similar power purchase agreement, or we can invest in a generation project that we own. One thing about the sequential power purchase agreements is that those agreements are getting more expensive. The ERCOT market, there's more scarcity, and the terms for those agreements are getting shorter. So where the CPS Energy agreement, originally that was a 7-year agreement with a 3-year extension. They were willing to commit to 10 years. Today you're looking at 3 to 5, and we're afraid those time frames are going to get shorter and shorter, and prices are on the rise. There's no doubt about that. Why are the prices on the rise? It's increasing demand in the ERCOT system, and this is the history of the peak summer loads in ERCOT and their latest forecast. And we had been traveling along at reasonable growth rates, but in the past couple of years, the summer peak went from about 75,000 to 85,000 megawatts. So we've seen tremendous growth in the past 2 years. The next big bump is because the legislature has actually instructed ERCOT to be more conservative in their forecasting. So personally, I think that's probably a little aggressive, but when you look at the recent history, I think that, that's a reasonable picture. So it may not be going this way, but, continuing on that rate is certainly reasonable. And the way we see it, we basically have two realistic choices for 2027. And we're using an analogy of you and your house and whether you rent or you own. And so option one is basically to continue renting and work on replacing that CPS Energy load following agreement. But again, and it's just like renting a home. The market's changing, there's scarcity, and the rents are going up. The other thing about that is you don't have guarantees about terms. If the landlord wants to raise the rent on you, there's nothing you can do about it. And basically, at a very high level, what we're seeing, the rate impact on renting is a more expensive path. It's probably, in the end, 20 to 30% more expensive for the near-term future. Our second option is basically build your own home, finance and build generation. And we're calling, if we decide to move forward with this will be your KPUB, this is your KPUB, and this will be your power. in terms of rate impact with owning, it's just like getting a mortgage on a home. You establish, a monthly price for your home, or a monthly price, basically what you're paying for that power plant. And another little thing about renting, in the end, when you're renting a home, you're paying the mortgage. You're paying for the investment in that house one way or another. And that's exactly the same in this scenario. Because it's a scarce market, if we continue with these short-term power purchase agreements, we're paying the cost to build new generation either way. Whoa. Okay. One slide. Another thing that has popped up that kind of helps this equation for us is the Texas Energy Fund. This is a new fund that the legislature established 15 months ago at the last legislative session, and it's made available $5 to $10 billion that's administered by the Texas Public Utility Commission. Our one program is low interest loans. It's a 3% interest rate for a 20-year term, and they'll finance up to 60% of the project with that. To qualify, you have to have a dispatchable generation facility that is at least 100 megawatts of capacity. And dispatchable means that you can turn it on whenever you need it. A solar system is not dispatchable because it does not produce energy when the sun's not shining. Wind energy is not dispatchable because if the wind's not blowing, you're not getting any power. And so realistically, for the Texas Energy Fund, the fuel source you need is natural gas. Batteries don't qualify either. There's a second component of the Texas Energy Fund, and it's completion bonus grants. It's $80,000 per megawatt of capacity installed by 2029. And so for a 100 megawatt project, that's $800,000 a year for 10 years. So that's another little piece to help lower cost. Again, the legislature created this program 15 months ago. The voters approved it back in November, and then the Texas Public Utility Commission started working on the rules. On April 1st, they released the submission criteria for the program, and they gave everyone basically until May 31st to express interest. So we went ahead and jumped in and submitted a notice of intent. And if you didn't do that, you couldn't apply. So that was just to keep our place in line, basically. And then the application submission period was June 1st to July 27th. And that was this past Saturday, and we submitted our application on July 26th. Again, there's no commitment there. We're just getting a place in line so we can be eligible for this opportunity with the low interest loans, basically. I want to talk a little bit about generation technologies and what we're thinking about. So I'm going down a list. Number one up there, hydro, is off the list. We're in Texas, water's scarce, the rivers aren't big, and there's not a lot of elevation change. The hydro we have produces very little energy when you actually look at it. Coal is old technology that's basically being shut down. If you try to develop coal now, you have to do carbon capture and sequestration, and no one's gotten that commercially viable. Those are also very big plants, which don't make sense for us. Natural gas combined cycle is good technology. It is efficient, but these are pretty big plants, and they don't make sense for KPUB. They also are not what the grid needs today. Nuclear is something that we're asked about a whole lot, and there is there is a lot of talk about nuclear, and there's new technology being researched and developed, but realistically, that's 5 to 15 years away from being commercially viable. And the technology, they're called small modular reactors, or SMRs. These would be small reactors built in a factory, and then they would be shipped out to your plant site, and you would install multiple reactors to make a bigger plant to match up to what a more conventional plant would be. Their designs are really interesting. They have fail-safe passive shutdown designs, and they're also using convection to reduce the use of pumps. They should be very safe when we figure them out, but they're still in research and development phase. The picture here, this is the South Texas Nuclear Project. History on that guy, they started thinking about that in 1971. They decided to really go forward in 1975, and then in 76 we had 3 Mile Island, and every nuclear plant in the U.S. got shut down except this one. They kept pushing forward, and it took them until 1988 to get it built. So that's conventional nuclear, and all of those plants had, they have a history of having a lot of cost escalation. Since 1988, there's only been one other plant built, or it's 2 reactors at one site in Georgia, and they just recently completed those, again over budget. So that's the old technology. It takes a long time. This is the new technology, and the company that had really been leading the pack in the U.S. is called NuScale. They were founded in 2007, so almost 20 years ago, and they were basing their design on DOE, Department of Energy research that started in 2000. In 2014, they announced that they had found a group of municipal customers to build a plant for. That was the Utah Associated Municipal Power Systems. And then in 2017, they submitted designs for a 12-reactor plant to the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. By 2021, 8 of the cities had withdrawn, and in January 2023, the NRC certified NuScale's design. So it took the NRC 6 years to approve the plant design, but in the meantime, many of the customers had dropped out. In late 2023, everyone said, that this isn't feasible anymore, and it's because the cost had escalated. Their original cost estimate was $4,200 per kilowatt, and in the end, they were up to $20,000 per kilowatt when they stopped. So, and when you look at these prices compared to more conventional generation, conventional generation is more in the neighborhood of $1,000 to $2,000 per kilowatt. Nuclear at 4,000, that's a great thing, but it's going to take a long time to figure that technology out. And really for us, it needs to be commercially viable and proven. And that means others get to take the first step and make sure this thing is working. So, that's it. It's where we need to go, but it's not the answer today. Going back to the list, wind and solar, they're not dispatchable. And so they're not the solution that the ERCOT grid needs. Battery storage is in the news quite a bit, and if you watch locally, there have been 2 battery storage facilities proposed close to us, one in Comfort and one in Mountain Home. It's good technology, but the problem for us is that they only provide 2 to 4 hours of output. And when you look at what we need, you look back to the winter storm in 2021, that some people call it Snowmageddon. The official name is actually Uri for us in the industry. But for Uri, you need a generation running for 5 days straight. So a battery system isn't going to get you through a winter storm. Simple cycle combustion turbine is getting closer to what we need. These are basically big, huge jet engines that run on natural gas, but the pricing on them has gone up significantly recently, and they derate significantly when it gets hot. So the hotter it gets, the less they can put out, and they're rated for full output around 75 to 80 degrees. Well, Texas summer, that's not going to cut it. In a Texas summer, they're derated about 25%. So if you have a unit that would run at 100 megawatts at optimal temperature, when it's hot and we need the power most, it's only going to be putting out 75, 80 megawatts, something like that. It also uses a considerable amount of water. So we're down to the bottom of the list, and this is where we're ending up with a technology called reciprocating internal combustion engines. The acronym for that's RICE, or RICE, and so that's what we're looking at. These are basically big engines, and it's very similar to the engine under the hood of your car, except they're massive. They are dispatchable, and in terms of dispatchable generation, nothing comes on faster and nothing is more flexible than this technology. You think about engines, and certainly there's a better technology, but as all technologies have been evolving, these have as well, and today they're highly efficient. They operate at full capacity in extreme weather, both hot and cold. Water consumption is almost zero, and they're very quick and easy to permit and build. So we could bring a plant online in 2027, and that's what we're focused on. How much power will it produce? How much capacity will it have? So a plan we're looking at is for a plant that would be 122 megawatts. And if you look at the 2027 summer peak, and with the other supplies that we have in place, that would actually give us excess generation, 40 megawatts of excess generation. But when you look at the winter, we would still be short. So this size is it's a good size that kind of fits right in the middle of what we need. When there was excess capacity, it would be sold in the ERCOT market to offset cost, to build a stabilization fund, rate stabilization fund, and to pay the plant off early. The pictures here, this is the Denton Energy Center. And so Denton installed this plant. It came online in 2016. These engines are massive. They weigh 200 tons. They're shipped in 3 pieces. They're typically 16 to 20 cylinder engines. The engine itself is about 30 feet long, 15 feet tall, 10 feet wide. And then separately they have a turbocharger and the actual generator shipped as well. So this plant is in Denton and has been running for about the past 6 or 7 years. This is another picture of the inside of the Denton plant. That they call it the engine house. And so they're housed in a building that gives them protection from the weather. And just to give you an idea of the size, this is a catwalk for workers to access the engine and service it. And this is another catwalk. So, it's a 2-story catwalk system to do maintenance on that thing. It's about 15 feet tall. And this is the generator on the backside, the actual engine. These are 18-cylinder engines. It's a V engine. And then on the back here, there's turbochargers, and you have air intake and then exhaust that comes in and out of the back of the building. Let me see. Almost glossed by. This is a big question we get. Where would it be? And it would not be in Kerrville. And the main reason for that is that the Atmos natural gas system does not have adequate capacity. The gas line that serves us, it's a radial line. It's not connected on the end. It originates up in the Lampasas area, I think north of Lampasas. It's a 12-inch line further north. When it gets down to us, it comes into town as an 8-inch gas line. It leaves as a 6-inch gas line. It goes to Center Point and then down to Bandera, and it ends in Bandera. But there's not enough capacity on that system to serve homes in the wintertime and this plant running at the same time. And siting generation in ERCOT requires, number one, proximity to your fuel, proximity to natural gas. Two, you want a strong connection to the ERCOT grid. And three, proximity to load centers generally increases the value of the plant. And I've got a new ERCOT analogy we're going to try out on you guys. We'll get into this a little more. But so when you think about that, close to gas, close to load centers, close to the grid, that's the Texas Triangle. It's San Antonio, Houston, Dallas, Fort Worth, So somewhere a little east of here makes a lot more sense for siting a power plant. So and then another big question is, or another big comment we get is great, you're going to build a plant, that'll get us out of ERCOT and we won't be subject to these winter events, Well, that is not the case, and I'll try to explain this a little more, but at a high level, ERCOT manages 90% of Texas's power load, and we have a separate, our grid in Texas is independent from the Eastern Interconnection and the Western Interconnection in the U.S. ERCOT has four primary responsibilities. Number one is maintain system reliability. They also facilitate competitive markets on the wholesale and retail side, and then they ensure open access to the transmission system. And I'm going to try out this ERCOT pool analogy. So let's compare ERCOT to a huge pool of water. You could picture it as a Texas-shaped pool of water. Texas is about 1,000 miles north to south and 1,000 east to west. So instead of miles, let's say this pool's 1,000 feet by 1,000 feet. Groups of customers suck water from the pool. And so those are substations or load. You'll hear me talk about load. Load is just the energy we need. And in ERCOT, those are groups of customers that are fed by substations. So we have substations sucking water out of the pool, and so we constantly need to pour water into the pool. Those are the generators or resources. So those are power plants, solar systems, wind, batteries, everything pumping water into that pool. And as part of their reliability job, ERCOT has to constantly balance the generation coming into the pool with loads pulling water out. And they do this, literally every second of the day they're watching this and adjusting the flow into and out of the pool. Loads are charged for the water they take from the pool. And we're charged for the wholesale price, we're charged for the spot market price, no matter what. Those prices change every 15 minutes and they vary across the pool. If you stop taking water, your lights go out, so you pretty much have to take that water at whatever price it is. Now, generators provide ERCOT with offers to supply water to the pool, and ERCOT dispatches the generators in the most economical way for the entire pool, while balancing their job to be reliable. ERCOT gets a bad rap about reliability, but their challenge is they only have so many generators to pour water into the pool, and when there's not enough, they have to start cutting the loads off. You can't pull any more water out of this pool. And I got a little thing for that. Now, I mentioned the prices change every 15 minutes. They're also extremely volatile. The average price year-round is $30, but the price ceiling is $5,000. So when you have a winter storm and everyone needs that water, and there's not enough, the price is pegged at $5,000. The low price is actually negative. So when you go on a mild spring or fall day and there's plenty of water flowing and you know, some people don't want to turn the water off to the pool, they'll actually pay money to put it in the pool and you get paid to take it out. It's kind of crazy, right? Here's another thing. The water molecules can't be tracked. So there's no way you can connect a generator to a specific load. The water goes into that pool and you lost the molecules. You're just taking whichever molecules flow to you at your straw, being where you're sucking water out of the pool. And probably what's happening, it's the closest source are the actual water molecules that you're getting. And then, so that's a lot to take in. This is very complex. The last step, going back to ERCOT having to constantly balance the water in with the water out, the level of water in the pool is extremely critical. And it has to be, in this analogy, almost exactly 60 inches deep all the time. If ERCOT forecasts the water level in the pool and the flows every day, and if their forecast says the water level is going to drop 1/10 of an inch, they start asking for conservation. So when you hear ERCOT say we need conservation today, that's because their 60-inch pool is going to drop to 59.9 inches. At 59.8 inches, they declare an emergency and start turning off voluntary loads. And below 59.8 inches, things fall apart very quickly because this pool, let's just call it magic, and we don't know exactly what's going to happen, but we're pretty sure when it drops to 58 inches, the water's going to disappear. And that's a blackout across the state. We've never filled the pool back up before, but if we're lucky, we might get it full in 3 or 4 days, but it could take a month. So that's my ERCOT analogy. The big things in this analogy, other than it's very complex, we're charged for the water we take from the pool no matter what, and we're charged the spot price. And the way you offset that is you contract for a resource going into the pool, or you own a resource that can supply into the pool. But you can't connect that resource to your actual load. We're all in this pool together, and when the water level's dropping, everyone has to take their share in being disconnected. So, that's not me, I swear. I left my phone in the office, so. Moving on to project benefits, and our number one benefit here is stable rates. That's the number one reason, and it's very, very stable for a decade, and part of that's because this, in combination with the other contracts, gives us a lot of certainty, and the support continues on for another 5 to 10 years beyond that. It puts us in a very good position for the next 2 decades, really. It also creates new power generation for Texas. So this supports Texas's plan to improve the grid, fixing the reliability issues. That is a statewide issue. That's why the legislature has the Texas Energy Fund. But by doing this in a way, we're doing our part. If you follow these energy issues, the Texas Energy Fund started at $5 billion. There were 125 initial notices of intent. And after that came in, that indicated that there was a lot more potential generation that could be built. The governor and lieutenant governor announced that they would be doubling the fund from 5 to 10 billion. Now that's going to take more legislative action and possibly another election, but it's the direction we need to go. But anyway, this is doing a part to support the statewide plan. This also gives us new and innovative service offerings. And it helps us for customers that want to be more sophisticated, which is by no means all our customers, but there are some. It offers us to give them price signals on the wholesale market and pass that through. So if, say, the customer wants to put solar on their house and put a battery system in and store that ERCOT water at their home and wait until ERCOT needs it to push it back into the system, then we could pass on a price signal, hey, electricity prices are peaking, and if you discharge your batteries now, we can give you a bigger credit for that. Likewise, customers with controllable loads can shift their load to off-peak and save money as well. And that's, maybe a little controversy. Electric vehicles are one thing that would be a great application where it'd be easy to get customers to charge at night, and that would be very beneficial for the grid in general. It's also helpful for bigger loads, bigger commercial and industrial loads. A little bit about our power supply cost and this plant. And although this is a big investment, the annual cost of owning generation and the project we're looking at is similar to the cost of the existing supply agreement that it's going to replace. And when you look at our budgets, we're already talking about big numbers. Current year's O&M budget, our current year's operating expense budget is $48.6 million, and power supply is 60% of that. So our 2024 power supply budget's $32.6 million. The generation project would replace the CPS Energy supply agreement. The cost of that agreement has averaged $20 million a year over the past 2 years. It's a good deal too. I mean, these are big numbers. It's a good deal. The generation project has similar cost. The annual capital financing payment would be approximately $10 million. The annual operating and maintenance cost is approximately $8 to $10 million. They're roughly a wash. The estimated capital construction budget is $150 million. And again, ultimately, this investment supports stable rates. Because, this is a stable place we can get to. Otherwise, we're just subject to the market. This is a little graphic showing where our money goes, starting from the smallest. For every dollar that you send KPUB, 3 cents goes to a transfer to the city of Kerrville. 16 cents goes to capital construction on local projects. 22 cents for operating expenses, linemen, power restoration, employees here, tree trimming, things like that. And then 59 cents is power purchase. And the power purchase of all these numbers, it fluctuates more than anything else because it's driven by the wholesale markets. In Texas, the price of electricity is driven in large part by the price of natural gas. So the 59 cents, this is a low number. The year before that, it was 69 cents. It varies, really. I've seen it, this is on the low side, and I've seen it as high as 70 cents. So who will operate, maintain, and schedule the plant? And what we plan to do is contract the plant operations. In the future, as we gain experience, we could transition to where we had employees operating it. And the maintenance would be provided by the generator manufacturer. There's 3 major manufacturers of this type of technology, and all 3 of them provide support out of the Houston area. So if we're building in the Texas Triangle, basically dealership support is available no more than 4 hours away. On the scheduling side, you have to have what's called an ERCOT qualified scheduling entity. And we already contract with 2 of these. The scheduling entity deals with scheduling your resources, your generation into the market, and also we have to have a scheduling entity for our load, for settlement of the load. So we're already experienced with these guys and have already currently do business with 2 of them. We don't expect any significant KPUB staffing changes initially. So we're getting towards the end here. If you haven't, please take our survey and give us feedback on this. We're using comments and questions from the survey to seed our frequently asked questions. And there's a lot of good information on the website with the FAQs as well. If you have friends or neighbors asking about it, a lot of this information is there. And if you put questions there, a lot of times those questions get posted on the FAQ. This presentation we're having again next week on Thursday evening. We'll also be going out to many of the local organizations, the Rotary, Kiwanis, Lions Club, Executive Women's Club, the Chambers. If you have a group that would be interested in hearing this presentation, please let us know. And I didn't introduce staff, but in the back of the room we have Amy Dozier. She's our Director of Finance, and she's been working on the numbers side of this. For the most part, she single-handedly got that TEF application together, and she's been doing an amazing job for us. Allison Boucher is also back here, and she's helping on the communication side. So the website, all the FAQs, all the questions being answered, she's helping with all of that. So you can email Allison with questions, and if she doesn't have the answer immediately, then we'll normally huddle up and get an answer so we can get it published on the FAQs. And I'll go ahead and pause now for questions, and I'm free till noon. Well,
what's the source of energy generation that CPS has right now?
So the question is, what's the source of fuel, I think, for the CPS Energy contract now? And our contract with CPS Energy, it's priced based on natural gas. But there's a little caveat to that. They don't actually have to run a natural gas plant to supply us. It's just the price is based on natural gas. You go back and think about that pool. In our contract with CPS, what it ultimately means is, the water coming out of the pool, we're going to take the ERCOT bill and we're going to give you a bill we contracted for, and they're going to put whatever water they want in the pool. But the contract's for natural gas, but the water the molecules in reality, who knows who knows how they were supplied.
So they probably use various power generation?
Yeah, and so in CPS's portfolio, they have a lot of natural gas, and they've acquired more. They're actually looking at building these RICE units as well. They have wind contracts, they have solar contracts, they have a piece of the South Texas nuclear plant, and they still have coal. So they have an extremely diverse power supply portfolio. So, and what they're going to do is they put all those resources together and they look at their needs and they use their cheapest sources first. That's how they run it. But our contract is based on the cost of natural gas. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. To go forward on this, would this require a public vote, or how would you float the bonds?
So the debt is, it's a contract revenue-based debt the way we've structured this, and it does not require a vote. So right now we're going through this public process. Our board and our council is monitoring this, and our board is going to have a lot of board meetings over the next couple of months to continue evaluating this. We would eventually go to council, and then council can approve the debt issuance without a vote. What'll happen, I don't know. So, yes, sir.
How much land does the rice, whatever, take up?
So how much land would the plant take? It takes about 15 acres for a 100 megawatt plant, so it doesn't use a lot
So
of
it's not
land.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, do you have any idea in the triangle where you think it will be located? Not in Houston, I would assume, because of,
We are evaluating a site, so we are in the process of evaluating a site, but I'm not at liberty to discuss the details of the site.
The process.
Yeah,
free from hurricanes, right?
yes, relatively free from hurricanes. Yes, ma'am.
I'm not a fan of ERCOT at all. I feel like they've created their own problems, but are we committed by law to be connected to ERCOT?
So are we committed by law to be connected to ERCOT? So if we really wanted to disconnect a load from ERCOT, the easiest way to do it or to get insulation from ERCOT is to install a backup generator. That's the simplest way to do it. And so that's what's already done at places that are critical, like this office, hospitals, doctors' offices, HEB now has them. So that's the easiest way to do it. You could take another step and build what's called a microgrid, and you can operate generation systems in parallel with ERCOT, and it can have the ability to separate from ERCOT. They're extremely expensive, and they're very complex because you still, that balancing act that ERCOT's doing all the time, you still have to do it on a local level. And generally what you have to do is you have to have a lot more excess capacity. So you're paying for more capacity than your load actually needs. So if the answer is really if your load is that critical, the most cost-effective solution is a backup generator. And then if you're trying to build something bigger, compared to the ERCOT economics, it's uneconomical. It would be many times the cost of operating off of ERCOT.
Well, at the rate Texas is growing, doesn't that still put us at risk? I mean, the big cities they're gonna get first choice on the power.
No. So at the rate Texas is growing, the energy supply is a huge issue, and it's probably one of the number one issues at the state level that the governor, the lieutenant governor, and the legislature are trying to address. Energy is also a huge issue at the national level, but the solutions are at that level. Kerrville, Texas can't, we can do our part, but we can't solve the reliability problem. In terms of reliability, we control our local distribution system reliability, and we have control over that. And the second comment there was that the cities will get first choice. And that's not true. When ERCOT has to, when there's not enough supply and they have to start curtailing load or doing rolling outages, critical loads are left on, and those are all identified, but those are typically hospitals and natural gas pumping facilities. Other than those, everyone else is generally on a list. And when you look at who controls that, LCRA does ours for us, and it's a big group of mostly rural utilities that do that. We have a share that we have to contribute. And so ERCOT will say, LCRA, you need to shed 10% of your load. At the same time, ERCOT will tell San Antonio, you have to shed 10% of your load. So everyone does their share. It's done fairly, and the cities do not get a preference. Yes, ma'am.
So when will you know definitively if you get this funding?
The
And
peak.
I assume you're pursuing tracks in parallel, just in case.
So when will we know about the TEF funding, and are we pursuing parallel paths? The PUC has a meeting scheduled for August 29th, and they're supposed to announce there or decide there who will be selected for further evaluation. Further evaluation will take 4 to 6 months. And the second question is, yes, we're evaluating parallel or other paths. So if the TEF funding did not come through, we still need this resource. We still have this decision to make. And this is still this is still going to be the right path. We will have to stop and pause and make some adjustments, but we're already reviewing 2 financial models. And one is with the TEF and another is without it. So, yes, sir.
Is the 122 megawatts based on the sizing of that, based on what you think you might need over a 20-year period?
It's,
Could you find out 10 years from now you need to build another one?
okay, so is the 122 adequate for near-term growth, the next 10 to 20 years? And the answer to that is yes. It gives us room to grow into the thing. When we get into the 2032 to 2035 time frame, we're going to have to be looking for other resources because we have that stack, and we're going to have to continue to maintain that stack of generation resources. It's also an opportunity that we have, and there's a number of reasons why that's the number that we happen to be focused on right now.
Okay, and if the project will 60% of it will be paid for with low interest money coming from the state, where does the other 40% come from?
So the other 40% would be revenue bonds. So that's municipal debt or municipal financing, and the rate on that is about 4.5%. It's still good interest rate. Is 4.5 right, Amy, or should I say 5?
4.5 is what we're looking at right now.
Okay.
We'll see what happens if the Fed starts lowering rates. That could impact it, but yeah, we're estimating 4.5 right now.
So we're estimating 4.5 for the remainder of the funding, or if we didn't get the TEF, all of the financing would be at 4.5. If the Fed's lower rates, that may improve things. Yes, sir.
Mike, I guess the economics we saw were based on getting the TEF funding. That's assumed in the economics that we saw. That's okay. I'm going to assume it was. The bigger question is, you showed an earlier slide where we were almost to the bottom in cost per kilowatt hour here in Kerrville. Only Fredericksburg beat us. And so a question is, how big a utility is Fredericksburg? And the third, is there any of these other municipal, local power groups evaluating the same kind of project that we're evaluating here? Does that make sense?
So it's going to.
There you go. So you're correct.
Yeah. So just comments on this. We're 100. That changed to 100 in July, and we work on stabilizing our rates. So we try to forecast our cost over a year, and we try to set things so that that's not moving up and down. Our costs used to vary significantly from month to month because we would pass through each month's bill, but now we'll over and under collect on that cost to achieve 100. In July, we switched to 100. We were 102. We were probably 102 for 18 months prior to that. And when you look at what our rates do, they're flat for 12 to 24 months at a time typically. Fredericksburg bounces around all the time, but they're low cost. The co-ops have a challenge. They have less dense systems. CTEC does an outstanding job. Fredericksburg is smaller than us. These things all vary a whole lot. One thing that's interesting, CPS Energy is there at 128. Their rates are pretty stable. We buy our power from them. So we've plugged in some good resources in addition to the power from them to get our rates where they are. We also operate an efficient system locally.
But people like San Marcos, are they evaluating the rice plant?
So who's evaluating rice plants? I had pictures of Denton's plants. Greenville submitted a notice of intent. CPS Energy submitted 2 technically. We've talked to others. The answer is yes, and everyone's in a different place. So for some, it doesn't make sense. For some, they don't. The rules in the TEF don't make sense for the fuel supplies they have. But there are 3, and LCRA is adding a rice plant right now that's coming on in 2025. STEC is South Texas Electric Cooperative. They've got one called the Pearsall plant that was put in 2010, and then they put in another one called Redgate by Edinburgh in 2016. So yes, there are others looking at this, and everyone's in kind of a different place as to what they need. The timing here is kind of working out well for us because we have this contract ending, we have market prices going up, it's a good opportunity, it's a good time for us to seriously consider ownership here. So, yes ma'am,
So, I had read that the proposals were oversubscribed. So many more utility companies have put in a proposal than there's dollars. But is there an opportunity to maybe partner with some of the other ones that have put it in?
the majority that so is there an opportunity to partner with others, possibly partner with others that have submitted to the TEF? It would be very challenging. Most of them are investor-owned utilities or merchant plants. On the municipal side, it's us, Greenville, and CPS. And we've talked to Greenville, and working with them just won't work. Greenville was also in a group called the Texas Municipal Power Agency. I talked to one of their CEOs 2 weeks ago, and his comment on the experience was we spent all our time suing each other. But we are we are looking at other opportunities. CPS is our supplier. And we've talked to CPS about extending contracts and other opportunities. But CPS basic, with the exception of the South Texas nuclear plant, CPS solely owns everything they have. So although we might have a discussion, I doubt it would get very far. I think it would be extremely challenging to do that. Yes, sir.
Well, you mentioned a word that's a segue to my question. The word is suing. Let's say you've got the program together, it's all approved, you're ready to go. What's the litigation risk in this?
We haven't gotten into a formal risk and mitigation discussion with our board, and that's actually coming in about 2 weeks. Amy and I met with a consultant yesterday that's helping us through that discussion. So I really don't have, I don't have the answer there. I think there are a lot of risks to evaluate, but if you're going in owning your own plant and you have a proven technology with a major manufacturer giving you a warranty, I think litigation risk is really low on the big picture of all the risks. But we haven't you know, we haven't fully vetted that.
There is within the law that, or the legislature's law, is there any litigation protection built into that? Like making certain actions just not eligible to go to court, or, I mean, like you mentioned the Georgia nuclear power plant, well, that thing was held up 20 years by litigation.
Right.
And these things are endless unless there's some kind of protection in the law against them.
Well, we have more work to do there. I think this small, simple plant is a much easier, a much different thing than a nuclear plant. And it's a much different thing. The Texas Municipal Power Agency, that was a coal-fired plant owned by 4 different cities. That was I don't know how big it was, but it was at least 500 megawatts. It was probably 800 or 1,000. You know, we haven't done the evaluation, but in the grand scheme of things, litigation risk on this type of project, I think, is very small compared to the others. There are a lot of other risks we need to look at as well. So,
Thank you.
yes, sir.
So is part of the ERCOT's problem been the fact that we don't have enough plants in the state because we haven't built any in many years? And there hadn't been any big plants done.
So,
I mean, I used to live near Houston. We had Smithers Lake, which is NRG's
mhm.
part of that, and it's a coal plant, and they've converted, and since we've converted a lot of these plants, is that part of the problem with ERCOT being?
So what's happened in ERCOT, if you look at the history, and it's a combination of things, but there have been federal incentives to build renewables. And ERCOT is an energy-only market, and we deregulated the market. So generation is separated from load, and you got this pool in the middle. So most traditional vertically integrated utilities got separated.
Right.
They're no longer own a power plant for their customers.
Yeah.
You know, they're different buckets. So you lost that planning of I'm planning for my customers, and now it's basically if the market's good and it looks stable, then I'll build. Well, the only thing that's been built in significant quantity, say from the late 2000s through now, has been wind and solar plants, and they have driven the prices in the market down. In the meantime, older plants have been retired, so you've lost coal plants.
Right.
That all worked fine until the winter storm.
Right.
And that the winter storm demonstrated that without question we have a supply problem in this market.
Yeah.
And so now the state's trying to fix that. But that's basically
Yeah.
what happened.
Okay.
And with the renewables, the wind gets a production tax credit. They get paid when they're producing energy. It's like it got phased out, but a lot of them were getting $25, $30 a megawatt hour. So if the price went negative, they could still, I can still pay $20 to put energy into the system, and I'll get a $5 credit. And it doesn't cost me anything to let this thing sit there and spin. So the renewables have drastically pushed prices down, and we see very low prices in the fall and spring and in the nighttime. Solar will go down to zero, then they'll shut off.
Yeah.
But they'll go down to a very low price. And depending on their contract, they could go negative, depending on the financials. So the renewables, and I'm not going to debate energy policy. We just look for low price opportunities. And that's why renewables are in our portfolio. Those are some of the cheapest energy sources we have, and that's part of the reason our rates are where they are.
For the moment.
Yeah, for the moment, right. And you can see how long those contracts run. The state has had policies that encouraged renewables as well. The state spends billions of dollars building these transmission lines out to West Texas. We've got one on I-10, so it's but that's what happened.
Okay. Thank
Yes.
you.
What factors would be considered that would cause our TEF application to not be looked on favorably?
The biggest, so they don't actually, we're not aware, or I'm not aware of an actual rubric. They want financial stability. We've absolutely got that. One thing that we have that's really unique is that our project directly helps retail customers, which is kind of unique. And I think that our chances are helped by the fact that there's only 3 municipalities that provided a notice of intent. I'm aware that 1 did not apply. And so, if there's only 1 or 2 in the municipal segment, I think they'll want to include those utilities. The thing that where we have a weakness, they're looking for experience operating generation. But we are talking to an entity that can help us with the development and operation of this project. So that would help offset that. But that's what I see as our weakness. There's a lot of politics in this. I mean, this is a state level decision. It's like the transmission line siting, and my family owns some property south of San Antonio, and it's on one of these maps for a new 345 transmission line. I told my siblings they're going to evaluate all these routes, they're going to make recommendations, and then powerful people are going to go behind closed doors and make decisions, so I don't know. And that's probably a little cynical, so we're probably not going to put that in the video. Yes, ma'am.
What is the timeline for construction if it could be online in 2027 and the CPS contract ends in 2026? Will there be a short-term gap?
There's a short-term gap that we can fill. There's a little risk getting through that gap, but we have another supplier up there, NextEra, is very flexible and easy to do business with. So we can get through that gap, and the time frame to build this plant is about 24 months. Yeah, delivery on the generators is 15 months right now. Now, as more and more of these projects start firming up, then those lead times will go out, prices will go up. We're afraid. So, in the back, black cap. No, you, sir. I'm sorry.
Yes, sir. If you choose to go forward, is there anything the public can do to help you?
Just if the survey and your feedback there, we're keeping the survey open as we're doing these presentations, but the feedback there I think would be helpful, an indication of support there. When we, so far, we did a practice run with former board members yesterday. We've done this practice run internally with employees, and generally when we talk to people and you start explaining the situation and the decision we have today, people are normally supportive of the idea. So I think the survey, is, if you happen to know any of the council members or board members, in either way, if you have connections to them and you have concerns, let's hear that so they can try to address that. If you have, if you're supportive of the project, that's great too. We have this on our Facebook, we have this posted on our Facebook page. If you came, you could, like it, put comments on there, attended the presentation, either way. We're just looking for feedback in general. Yes, sir.
The Rice engines are more economical to run and maintain than gas turbines?
The
Is
heat,
that why you're aiming at rice engines?
yes, sir. The heat rates for rice engines, a heat rate is a measure of how economically it converts natural gas into electricity, and they have lower heat rates. So, and they're simple machines, you know. It's just like an engine under your car. If you look at the turbines, those are pretty complex and I think can get a little finicky. You have problems with blades in the turbines cracking and vibrations and things like this. This is a big engine that runs at relatively low RPM, like 500-600 RPM, you know, and you basically need a diesel mechanic to do your maintenance on it. So, yes, sir.
I was looking at this chart again, and also the one that's in the handout, which I think is last year's chart.
Yes, sir.
And we're relatively stable, gone down a couple of dollars. We were talking about Fredericksburg a while ago, which was 99, now they were at 107 just 1 year ago.
Yeah.
And the poor city of Bernie was at 123 last year, and now is at 145. What are the factors that are causing some of these to jump so much in 1 year?
So it depends. One, it depends on how they pass through their power cost. Because generally we all have rates that allow us to pass through the power cost. And Fredericksburg, I know, they're changing. They're fully passing through power cost every month. And the costs fluctuate a lot. In summertime, they get high. In wintertime, they're higher. They're real low in the fall and spring. And so they bounce around a lot. And that's pretty common. And you have to watch them for a long time to figure out what they're doing. Some of them, when it's a city department, sometimes the rate structures they're not right, you know, and they may be over recovering cost or something like that. You know,
it's really only meaningful over a long term.
Yes, yeah, but over the long term, we're consistently in those top positions, and our, you know, we used to every month flow through full power cost, and when it would literally, you'd have $80 one month and $110 the next, and then it'd go back down. They were huge swings, and that, you know, when you think about customers and especially those that might be on a tighter budget, you know, that's a horrible thing to be doing to your customers. So, you know, we try to, you know, basically balance it out over a year and then try not to change things more than once every 6 months. And a lot of times it's a year or 18 months or 24 months before we have to adjust. So it just, you know, you have to look at each one individually and look at them over a long term. And you know, Austin Energy, they've got a different philosophy too. Austin's rates are better. They benefit small customers, think condos, apartments, and they penalize people in big houses. And when you look at Austin's rate, if you're using 500 kilowatt hours, you might be paying like 7 or 8 cents. If you're using 2,000 or 3,000, you're probably paying, you know, 15, 18 cents, something like that. You know, so they're trying to, you know, they're doing something with policy there, whereas here it's cost to serve, and we do a cost of service study, and our rates are based on the cost to read your meter plus the cost to get the energy to your house, and that's it, you know, and that's what our community wants. And Austin wants something different. So that's why a lot, you know, they all, you know, all a little bit different. So.
They're weird.
Yes, ma'am.
I just want to thank you for this discussion and for the communication and just everything about KPUB. There's nothing bad I've ever seen.
Yeah.
It's always very, very good.
Yeah, personally, I worked my first 11 years for CPS Energy, and then I came up here, and it was refreshing to see. This place is very small, so it's very responsive and run very efficiently. At the same time, decisions are made relatively quickly. When you look at a big organization where everything is done in meetings and committees, we're able to do things very quickly. The other thing too is that we have a much closer connection to our customers. The first time we worked an outage, or I was up here for an outage, I went into dispatch, which is in a room right there. We're all pretty much right here. And they were talking about an outage out in Hunt. And they said, and the dispatcher's saying, well, that's over Miss So-and-so's ranch, and we need to give her a call. And he knew her number, and you're not going to touch that
No.
at a big place. The other thing is a lot of times, my office literally shares a wall with the lobby, so I know when the customer is in the lobby and angry and I'm available, and the board members that set our policy, they're in the community too and active. So, and they're here every month and available. Yes, sir.
Well, I'd like to echo the lady's comment. You're obviously very deep in this world of electricity, and for someone like me, I'm not. And I think you've done a good job today of trying to interpret from your world into something that other people can understand. And thank you.
Good job.
Yeah. And we're fortunate here too. This place started on a good foot in '87. Bill Taylor stepped up as the first GM and had a very good handle on cost, and he set us on the right track. And really, I'm number 3 on general managers, and really the biggest job is not to mess it up. Keep us on the right track. So it's a lot easier than going in and trying to fix a place, because it's taken decades to get us where we are today. So. Okay. And I'll be around too, and if y'all think of anything else, you can email Allison. If it gets complicated, we'll be huddling up. We have phones, and thanks for coming out. We really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.